What is going on, folks? I am Goat. Welcome back to Warframe. Hi. I shot all these other returning player videos for, primary, secondary, and melee weapons, and I said in the primary video that I was going to talk about Sentinels. Now, I do want to talk about Sentinels and Companions. Now, as a grand reach across things, Sentinels and Companions, as far as their base function, really hasn't changed that much aside from bond mods. That and, claw-specific mods for Companions. So, I mean, yes, they've changed as far as their, no more perma-die kind of bullshit, which is great. That is a huge QOL for the game. But as far as function goes, okay, let's just kind of walk through some of these Sentinels and their, at least in my opinion, what their solid base function is, okay? So we have Carrier Prime. Personally, I find that Carrier is the absolute best looter for an obvious reason, okay? Looter. Funny how that works. Emits a pulse to, breaks crates with loot crates within 22 meters. Unfortunately, it doesn't affect, it doesn't affect, lockers, but, primed animal instinct does kind of help with, seeing where loot stuff is. Granted, that doesn't really show lockers either, so it's really just more using your eyeballs. Carrier with an invis frame like Loki, or Ivara especially, somebody who's really invisible for some pretty heavy duration if you build it that way, is quite useful. Now, when it comes down to the bond mods are an interesting scenario all on their own. Each bond mod, I mean, let's just look at this, okay? Because bond mods in themselves have made such a dramatic difference to the way things work. And yes, you can see there's some that I don't even use because they don't really fit in my playstyle so much, but I still own them on the basis of worth testing for later, just in case. So, Aerialborn. Airborne kills decrease companion recovery time by a certain amount of timer and a certain number of headshot kills. Companion create a field of cold that increases up to 10%. Well, it says up to 10%. Understand it's unranked, so it's probably higher. And a certain radius. Warframe, while Warframe is airborne, lasting a certain period of time after returning to the ground. Now, personally, Aerial Bond seems like it has function. Okay, it really does. But then you also have, a preset mod that kind of does the same shit within reason. Okay. It has nothing to do with being aerial. It just unleashes a 10 meter radial cold blast when multiple enemies are nearby and adds 3 stacks with a 10-second cooldown. So it's like, do you really need aerial bond? No. Yeah, just my opinion. No. I mean, especially if you apply a weapon that does cold damage. It's like, I get it. I get what the point is, right? Astral Bond. Now, Astral Bond is different, okay? Damage dealt by Operator Drifter grants 10% damage and, and again, unranked, so take the numbers as they are, and 5% void damage to your companion attacks for 10 seconds. Companion void damage adds plus 5 amp and energy efficiency for Operator and Drifter. So if you're really, really heavy on using your Operator and your Drifter, this is a really, really functional bond mod. I'm much more straightforward. Now, does this help, if you're using Glass Gasp? Oh, I'm sure it fucking does. But if you got a good amp, and a couple of good arcanes, Glass Gasp, and that's really going to kind of do its own work. Contagious Bond. Okay, when your companion kills an enemy afflicted with status effects, with a status effect, 50% of the status effect spreads to other enemies within 9 meters, max of 100 fucking stacks. Okay? This one is quite interesting with a few. Okay? Just saying. Just putting it out there, okay? It's definitely interesting with a few. Excuse me, Covert. Finisher and Mercy kills grant your companion 1 second of stealth that attacks will not disrupt. Max 60 seconds. So if you are all about like something like Ash, right? Something like Ash, or even, Inaros doing multiple, ground finishers, things like that, that I can see that being a thing. Duplex bond. This one is one that a lot of people use, and honestly, I do understand its function. Okay, companion will clone itself each time you expend 100 energy, up to 3 clones. Clones live 30 seconds and cannot use abilities, which does kind of suck, but then again, it doesn't. Their kills have 50% chance of dropping energy orbs, so it's kind of a nice little triple dip here. So I do understand it, because the little bastards, all three of them, just flying to fuck around using weapons and shit, or in the case of animals, can really put in some work that way, even when there's no abilities abound. Mystic Bond. After your companion uses an abilities with cooldown 5 times, you may cast a Warframe ability without expending energy. If you've got a really, really energy-hungry frame, there is function behind Mystic Bond. Reinforced. If your companion exceeds 1200 max overshields, which Augur mods will help with this, Hildren, things like that, anything that's going to just, basically bleed over shields to everybody else, or with yourself, then your fire rate is increased 60%. Reloading restores 150 overshields to your companion. So basically, just reloading does this. So just roll with that. Restorative Bond. Health orbs restore 60 more health and reduce companion recovery by 3 seconds. Something like Lavos, Protea, hell, life support pods in themselves, all these can do that kind of thing. Seismic Bond. When a channeled ability is active, companion melee attacks create a 4-meter shockwave for 30% of their melee damage. Damage dealt by your companion increases your ability efficiency by 3% for 12 seconds, max up to 10 stacks. So you can get up to 30% ability efficiency by this. I mean, like, if you really look at them and read them, you kind of see their function. We'll go over the couple that are up on top, too. Tenacious Bond. This one's a very interesting one. Headshot kills reduce companion recovery timer by 3 seconds. If the companion's critical chance is over 50%, then you gain a plus 1.2 times final critical multiplier. That is a huge thing. Okay? So basically, as long as your companion's weapon has 50%, or above 50% critical chance, then you get an extra critical damage multiplier to whatever the fuck you're wielding, which is a really, really good time, by the way. Vicious Bond. Companion melee attack strips 15% enemy armor. Enemies recently damaged by abilities spread the effect to other enemies in a 9-meter radius. Just basically, like if you're using a companion with Hildren, this is actually going to help, because trying to get to that 400% marker with Hildren for a pure armor strip is just, like, not worth it. So this actually helps, reduce more armor in that fashion. And its spreading function, again, helps in that point. Momentous Bond. Killing Eximus enemies grants 120% bonus of random random elemental damage to your bonus of random elemental damage to your companion for 30 seconds, and reduces companion recovery by 18 seconds. Huge buff. Manifold Bond. Companion precept mods apply status effects from killing or from companion weapons. Yeah. Killing enemies with 3 or more unique status effects reduces companion ability cooldown by 3 seconds. So basically, as long as you're killing, any of the precepts that have cooldowns are going to work faster. So, Looter, for example. It does have a time frame. Even though it doesn't say it, it doesn't just automatically just boom, 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 flash and flash and flash. There's kind of a bit of a timer to it. So, bond mods in themselves are excellent. The fact that we have respawn times instead of just insta-kill is good. Carrier, Looter, Companion. Now, that being said, we have... I'm going to use my mouse for this. So, we have the Adarza Kavat. Yes, I call it Dumas. The Adarza Kavat is... I mean, basically... It's just a mean bitch. Okay? The Adarza Kavat is basically just an absolute... just beast, okay? On its basis of... it can reflect damage back, which is good, but it can also grant critical chance. So it is a pure battle base Kavat. Okay, everything else is kind of meh, right? Like it's a Kavat, but it boosts the shit out of your critical and it reflects damage. The Darzan Kavat, not bad. Okay, obviously the claws are the claws. Kind of mod those however you want. Death Cube. For a frame with energy problems, this is one way to go about it. Specifically from Cephalon Samaris, energy generator. Now, this is the beauty part, is that you only have to get kill assist. So basically, the companion just has to basically have a damaging interaction with an enemy to consider it an assist. You know, so after 10 assisted kills, which is not difficult to get, this motherfucker drops an energy orb. Pretty helpful. Couple that with Synthi Construct and then having something like Equilibrium on a frame, and this really, really, really does help with energy. And obviously for energy generator to really work, something like Assault Mode is definitely helpful. So just throwing that out there. But Death Cube for energy frames, it's a big helper. Another one, Darija, you know, whatever you would like to call it. The Shocky Electrocution Sentinel. Now, here's the thing, okay? I got a frog in my throat here. So, here's the thing. Darija actually can utilize something, I believe it's Archon Stretch, because companion abilities function in the same commonality as Archon mods. So if the companion is doing, let's say, electric damage, and Archon Stretch wants electric damage to regen energy, this is another way to get it, because the companion's abilities dealing electric damage, so Arc Coil and Electropulse, are spreading electric damage even when you are not. Therefore, Archon Stretch works. I believe it's Archon Stretch. I'm almost positive it's Archon Stretch. So this is another really, really simple way to go about getting more energy with frames. That and electric status in itself is pretty damn good. So just putting that one out there. Darija, very, very, very good for CC and for energy regen, if you are utilizing the proper way. Helios, the scanner. Excuse me. The Scanner Sentinel. Now, Helios does have its own very, very specific weapon, which is the Deconstructor, which is 3 glaive. Basically, it breaks its face apart and throws 3 of the base damages, so impact, slash, and puncture, as its primary damage sources. The problem is they list them as glaive thrown abilities, and they're really not. Okay? Like, they are, but they're just very low damage. I mean, for kill assisting kind of stuff, that would be great if you could put, like, the Deconstructor on, you know, like on Death Cube. That would be funny, because then you would get 3, you know, assisted kills in 1 fire. You can also use, like, rocket launcher style, you know, or beam style that's with cold to chained enemies to also get those kinds of kill assists. Now, specifically, you can see the fire rate increase on there. That's just kind of a thing I did for Helios, just because it's really functional. But you'll notice most of the precepts that specifically fit to this particular, you know, Sentinel, you always want in the first spot, because the precepts, just like elemental mods, are going to kick off in order of appearance from top left, you know, to top right, and then bottom left to bottom right. So they're going to go in that order of appearance, you know. So, like, for Investigator, if you're trying to get scans, you always want Investigator in the first spot. You know, Vacuum is going to kick off when Vacuum kicks off. You know, Primed Regen is just kind of there. I don't know why Primed Regen is a fucking, you know, a precept mod, but it's kind of whatever. But Helios, if you're all about the scan life, Helios can do a job. I mean, Helios has other function, I'm not going to lie, but its primary function is to literally get you scans. Now, the hounds, in general, okay? I don't give a shit what hound you use, what components the hound has. Okay, I mean, just so you're aware, all 3 of the hounds that I do have are all based on Star Trek. Okay, so I have Lord, Data, and B4. Just throwing that shit out there. Yes, I'm a nerd. I get it. I don't care what fucking hounds you have. Personally, whatever, you know, I use this hound, which is lore, funny because it's a menace, and I use the Akaten. Now, specifically, this build, if you're trying to do anything that involves keeping a kill count up, this dog is actually going to kind of prevent that, because the dog puts in almost, if not more work than a normal frame does. This thing is a fucking menace. Okay? And all you have to do to keep this thing alive is melee. Okay? Literally, just melee. Now, do you need to use the link mods? No, you can absolutely use the calculated mods instead. Calculated enhanced instead of link mods. It's just like with this, you know, I have run this quite a bit on Lavos, and it works very, very well. But specifically this setup, and yes, there's a couple of ways to go about this, but I find that basically throwing an electricity spark is really good. Repo audit, basically disarming enemies, is a good time. And reflex denial, you know, generates a shield that reflects 90% damage and then pulses as magnetic damage. Okay, so basically you fuck up Overguard, you fuck up Corpus Shield, anything that doesn't like magnetic does not like this function. Now, is there another audit that you could put on here that's kind of funny? Yes. If you like the, which one is it? No, it's null. Yeah, so, sorry. So the Hound null audit you can use in place of repo audit. So if you just not worried about people shooting at you instead of trying to melee your ass, the Hound utilizes the same aura and abilities as an Eximus enemy for 60 seconds while stripping Overguard by 50%. That in itself, if you have a problem with Eximus, especially in Hulvania because there's so many goddamn Eximus, bring the dog with you. It is going to just absolutely rip through Overguard, and it's going to steal the aura of the Eximus. The only negative to this particular function is that you will quite often get the dog fucked up with being another Eximus, especially if it's like a Jade or an, you know, because all you're going to see is the green beam of death chasing shit around, and you're going to think, oh my god, there's a Jade there, I gotta shoot it, and then you realize it's your dog and you've wasted ammo. But I like disarming enemies and make them easier to kill. But this is an absolute menace setup, coupled with this setup. Because all of the Hound weapons are all melees anyway. The Akaton is just kind of what I settled with, and this coupled with that dog build is absolutely stupid. If you don't believe me, go look at my Lavos Prime release video. You'll see the fucking thing is a menace. Just put as many damage types on this son of a bitch as you can. Put that dog build together and go ham, and the dog is a pure fucking menace to society. Nautilus. Now, Nautilus is an interesting one. Okay? Nautilus, initially when it came out, yes, it was a grouping sentinel, which is good. But its primary function, early on, was when Railjack 3.0 first released, was to help you when people were still finding crew members, because this is Sevagoth's sentinel, right? This is the one that you farm over in the Proxima missions, and then obviously this comes with, you know, the Sevagoth pack. But this fucker also just repairs your damn ship. So instead of having to break your Omni tool out, this fucking thing will just start repairing the damn ship all on its own. But, Cordon, grouping ability. Obviously you want it in the first mode. Assault mode, well, I mean, yes, if you're using a weapon, yes. And I'll explain the if in just a moment. But generally, just for pure grouping function, this works just fine. I've got another config here that works just fine. Guess what? I've got a utility config right here that works just fine, because not only does it group them, but it also slows them the fuck down. So instead of having to be airborne, guess what? We have coolant leak right there. Have a nice day. You know, Nautilus, if you don't want to have to subsume a grouping ability on your frame, this works great. Okay? Taxon, the first Sentinel that you ever get your fucking hands on. Taxon has a funny ass use, specifically to a couple of frames. Now, more than a couple. If you're running a shield regen setup, you know, like Hildren, or if you're trying to do, excuse me, you know, like Trinity, and even funny enough with with shield gating, this can actually work. Now, I'm not a shield gator, so don't necessarily hold me to that 100%, but it all comes down to molecular conversion, okay, and Guardian. You know, so boosting shields plus, guess what? Boosting your fucking shields. And, oh, by the way, boosting your fucking shields. I mean, what do you think we're doing here? Now, the Hydroid one is funny, because it's not insanely different, but this works really, really well with Hydroid. Okay? It just does. Okay, I'm just telling you right now, this particular setup works very good with Hydroid, but just for general shield utility, this thing works great. And funny enough, Taxon works very, very well, which is the initial weapon that you, or I'm sorry, not Taxon, Artax, works very well. Just from the basis of it does cold damage, so you can use Shiver and Contagion. It's a beam weapon. Lots of good stuff from that. And it all counts as functioning into this. So if you're trying to keep your shield utility up, Taxon is, funny enough, a very funny way to go. And I know, these aren't like, this is my best one. I'll talk about that in a sec. Worm Prime, very obvious, okay? Very fucking obvious. You go to Cephalon Samaris, you get this motherfucking mod. You are going to really, really alter your frame's ability to not die. Basically negating status effects every 5 seconds. So if you are getting bombarded with fucking damage, negate coupled, with Worm Prime makes this insanely, insanely good. Everything else is just kind of as you've seen. Worm Prime's really good. There's B4, there's Data. Now, I don't even have all of the companion types, but Kubros are dumb, okay? Kubros and Predicites are just really, really stupid. They all have kind of their different functions, but they're all still really stupid. Now, the Hounds aren't much less stupid, but they at least do more damage, so it kind of makes it worth it to watch them sit there and fuck people up. The MOAs are also kind of dumb, because they're not very powerful, and they tend to just get their ass kicked. A companion type that really, really becomes interesting is the Vulpaphylas. Now, I actually have, I think it's 5 or 6 Panzer Vulpaphylas with really stupid fucking names. As you can see, Gonorrhea, Herpalurp, Tampon, Waffle Stomp, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Those are all Panzers. Now, I do have the others. I have Slasher, and I have Hentai. Okay? But the general idea behind a Panzer is this. It's just this, okay? Now, you can turn around and you can do Panzer Evolution over here. You can do Viral Quills over here. So like, you can put that here, and then it's going to be just fine, okay? It's going to be totally fine. It's not going to be a problem. Really, probably the way you should do it anyway. But these are both Panzer-specific setups, and I'm telling you right now, this is a very, very, very good setup to run for a Panzer. Because these little fuckers, even when they die, they just turn into a weird little larva that just fucks shit up even while they're fucked up. So they're just constantly assholes no matter what you do. Yeah, we have Fugly Cat. Fugly Cat is a Sly Vulpaphyla. Now, Slies, there are a lot of ways to do this, okay? There's 100% a bunch of ways to go about this, okay? It de-evolves, your kills reduce enemies' accuracy. Cool, that's great. On a bullet jump, enemies lose sight of you for 1.5 seconds. Basically just extra added survivability. That's just what they do. Okay? It's just kind of the thing behind the Slies. And I believe it's the Crescents. Oh, that's a Panzer. So Hentai, that's another one. Where is that motherfucker? Don't worry, we'll get to another one. Damn, did I? Oh no, Slasher. That's right. Oh, that's the Crescent. There we go. I'm sorry. So here's the Crescent. And I'm even missing a mod because I just don't use the Crescents. Okay, so we have the de-evolving. It does puncture. That's fine. Charged an enemy dealing puncture damage. Personally, I'm just not a big fan of Crescents, hence why I just never really put much of a build to it. The Crescents aren't bad, they're just kind of the lesser of the three. My personal opinion. Now, we do have the Vaska Kavat. Now, the Vaska Kavat is the get out of jail free card cat when it feels like it. Okay. Gonna make that really simple. It's the get out of jail, free. Which one is it? Do, 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 do. Yeah, there we go. So when you go down, there's no real time frame to this kicking off, so I've never really found a need to move this into the first spot. But when you go down, so basically if you go down and you go into bleed out mode, the Vasca basically kills itself, sacrifices 20% of its own health to raise you. So obviously putting health into the little bastard is a good idea. That being said, it's pretty straightforward. Like one more forma and you can actually, throw on a full-on fetch. Tech Enhance is just combat duration abilities. Draining Bite, it's throwing slash damage at people and restoring 10% of its health. So it's just like, the Vasca is a perfectly fine animal to use. It really is. It's just a matter of, like, how do you want to build it? Like, I haven't used the Vasca in a while because I just have last gasp. So it's like, I'm not worried about this thing rezzing me. But for earlier players, albeit the Vasca is the hardest one to get, I would highly recommend that if you do not have the Vasca and you're having survivability problems, this little fucker does help from time to time when you get down. Just putting it out there, man. Meow, I know. Meow at me, you crazy fuck. What else we got? The Oxalis. The Oxalis is another one. This is your fishing companion. 100% fishing and scanning. So here, it'll scan plants within 50 fucking meters, and this consumes codex charges. That's fine. And then it also scans fish. So if you're trying to get all your fish scans done, that's great. But it also does luminous dye. So when you've got to do all that annoying ass farming, or if you're trying to, crack ribbons, this little fucker is really handy for that function. Beyond that, it's just kind of, okay. Like here, you can swap that so that one actually works more frequently. Yeah, botanist and scan aquatic life forms, those are two must-haves for the Oxalis, and the Oxalis unfortunately is stuck in Fortuna, having to farm for that little bastard. Let's make some trades and buy it. And then finally, we're going to come down to Shade Prime. Now, Shade Prime is a very, very interesting frame, because basically, if you don't make any offensive movements toward an enemy, so if you don't attack an enemy, this fuckhead will just keep you invisible. That being said, who here wants to fathom a guess at who the funniest frame to stick this son of a bitch on is? Yeah, it's Zaku. Yeah, it's Zaku. Because technically, Cloak and Owner, when enemies are within 24 meters, the cloak is disrupted by your attacks. So basically, you'll break the invisibility if you attack somebody. Zaku's stolen guns do not count as an attack. So it's really hilariously funny to throw this on Zaku and just let the fucking stolen guns just kill everything. It's a really, really good time. You've also got the Ghost Invisibility is broken. When the Ghost Invisibility is broken, the Shade's owner is granted 240% weapon damage, which is kind of nice. So if you're going to attack somebody, this incentivizes you to do it, and then basically just go hide. Just saying. Spare parts isn't necessary. Put whatever fuck you want to in there. That was just kind of here. There you go. But that's just kind of the thing. Now, my personal opinion, who's your best, right? This is where it gets subjective as hell. It depends on what you're doing. You want something that destroys shit? The dog. The hound, specifically. You want a grouping ability without having to subsume for it? Nautilus. You want something for energy regen or CC or both? Death Cube with a cold weapon like the Verglass Prime, the Artax, a few others. Definitely works. Doriga. Anything that does electricity. It's like the Tazakor, very good with this. Coupled with Doriga is a very good idea. Taxon, shield regen, Worm Prime. Truthfully, Worm Prime is probably one of the best Sentinels just for its pure level of giving you more survivability. Let's just be honest. When every 5 seconds this thing can just negate a status effect off your ass, if you're in trouble, that is really helpful. So I leave it to you on what you think is the best shit out there, but I can tell you there is really good options, and the fact that nothing ever permadies anymore is a good time. So folks, that being said, I want to thank you very much for watching. As always, catch you in the next one, alright?